Hey, it's Chris Schmidt. Another episode of the Average Joe Sports Show. Dejection, Part 2 in Iowa City.
Let's hope that the portal activity by Nebraska football is not a double dribble. I'm Gary Sharp.
Hi, it's Bill Doleman. And, hey, who at the rental car counter gets a Dodge Charger doesn't think about punching it a time or two when they get to the freeway?
It's Elijah Herbel here. We'll also talk college football playoff, make our predictions. Who's going to be playing in that national championship game?
Welcome to it. It's episode 83, an abbreviated Average Joe Sports Show midweek edition.
Abbreviated compared to what we've been putting out the past couple weeks.
The Iron Horse is Gary Sharp. That is Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Hope you're well. Like and subscribe to the Average Joe Sports Show on YouTube. Also Spotify and iTunes, where you can find us. The audio portion, the AJ Sports Pod on Twitter. Tell a buddy. Keep those subscriptions going up, up, up. We're nearing a G. We appreciate that. That's fantastic. Did you have a bad beat last night? If you had money on Nebraska basketball is where we're going to go briefly. We'll hit portal additions as Nebraska gets an offensive lineman from Roll Tide, and, of course, college football playoff. But, just full disclosure, sometimes I go to a dark place on the couch if I'm watching basketball. Mm-hmm. No insinuation from you three. That dark place is you take your unbiased hat off and you get into a ball game. And you know what? It would have been pretty cool for Nebraska to be 2-0 this week. Nebraska basketball, you're up 15 with 15 to go. Iowa wins by 10 in overtime. And it was just too soon from what happened at Kiddick for some Nebraska fans to what happened on the hardwood. What the hell happened loss for Nebraska. I hope it's a non-nice Fred Hoiberg before the guys get ready to go to Purdue. What a collapse. What a shooting exhibition by Iowa. What good moments for Nebraska basketball at times to build that lead. And then just no defense to be found in transition. And I tell you what, with Dixon and Sanford, man, they just went lights out. It was pretty gruesome for Nebraska basketball. That's one that, Sharpie, you're going to be kicking yourself down the road because there's so few road wins that you have and hold in your hand in Big Ten play.
Yeah, that's. So it doesn't wreck Nebraska's season. I mean, I still think Nebraska's a good team, but you're right. They had Iowa on the ropes. Like, Iowa saved their season last night. Iowa didn't have an interest in playing defense. They were getting bullied by Nebraska. Dix was really the only one shooting well, and you were up by 15, and you weren't playing great because you still weren't hitting free throws. You still weren't hitting layups, but you're still up by 15 on the road, and Iowa felt like the game with about 10 minutes to go was teeter-tottering on could you throw the knockout punch, and Nebraska didn't. And all of a sudden, credit to Iowa. Sanford and Dix carried Iowa in the second half. They saved their season. Just a weird game. It was the opportunity that was there for Nebraska. Winning on the road is hard. Look at last night. Tennessee, Florida go on the road in the SEC. When you have the opportunity to grab a road win, I don't care who you're playing, the bottom of the league, top of the league, middle of the league, you have to find a way to get it. And Nebraska just didn't have the closer last night. They had Bryce. But a weird game, guys, because with all that said, and Iowa gets back into the game, and then it's back and forth, and, you have to fight through some things that you can't control.
Yeah.
And we're talking about officiating. And the biggest one is the egregious one to me is the double dribble right in front of the official. But wasn't it weird, guys? So Nebraska gets a new life. Bryce Williams hits the three to tie the game, and then Nebraska just kind of flatlined in overtime. That was just that was a weird night. I hope they learn from it. They have Purdue on Sunday. You hope that game doesn't get brought up again when you get to March.
That's what I was going to say is at the end of the year when they show the resumes and who's in, who's out, good wins, bad losses. And I'm thinking of that game for Nebraska last night as being on that bottom line of bad losses or ones that got away. That's going to be the asterisk game that if they're first out, that's going to be the day you're going to point to. It was a winnable game. And I thought, I agree with you, Gary, they flatlined after the opening possession of overtime. They got the ball down low, missed the shot, didn't have a chance to take the lead. And after that, it was like watching overtime in football. If you don't score on the first possession, the next team goes down and scores on its possession, game's over. And Nebraska didn't score when they had the opportunity on the first possession, and was, you're right, flatlined. And how did it end up being a 25-point swing in the last 15 plus 5 minutes of the game? In the first half, I thought I was watching an Iowa team that looked like me playing video games. You know, the guy who gets the controller and doesn't know how to operate it, so he's just kind of spinning around in one spot while everybody else is playing. And they looked disinterested, Iowa. And somehow, some way, and it was Sanford making shots, and, you know, he and Dix went on heaters at the same time, 61 combined points. And you know, Nebraska, though, had chances. They get outscored by 10 at the free throw line. And free throws are what dominated the game in the win over UCLA, but they don't connect. Esigian is now 2 for his last 12 from behind the arc. So I'd have him shooting threes from now until they land at Mackey Arena, even on the plane. Just keep shooting threes until you start making them. He's got to have a game where he goes 5 for 8 or something like that, 6 for 9, because he's got to get his stroke back. And I saw Nebraska a couple times trying to get him shots into a rhythm. He missed a 3. They got the rebound, got it right back to him, missed another 3. So 2 for 12 in his last 2 games. They survive against UCLA. They lose at Iowa. Missed shots, missed opportunities all around. So my fear for Nebraska is in the first 4 out discussion. The Iowa game is going to be on that below line. That's going to be the one that they will harp at and say, yeah, that was the night that they blew it. I agree, the season's not over. And this Nebraska team probably has the potential to go to Mackey and win at Purdue. With the size they have, the way Morgan really didn't do anything last night. Mayes, Butengel, I mean, they've got the physicality to play Purdue at Purdue, a Purdue-style game. Now, whether they bounce back or not and get it done, that remains to be seen. But they gotta shoot better.
You guys have pretty much nailed it. Like, the one thing I will say is that this team came out and did what I wanted to see in the first half, which is Iowa threw the first punch. Iowa threw the first punch of that ball game. You could tell that they were motivated early within the first 5 to 10 minutes of that game. Nebraska punches back. They go on the big extended run through halftime. You have the 15-point lead, and then it was foot off the gas. Like, you had them with their throat underneath your foot, and you let off of them. You said, you know what? We're up 15. We'll go conservative here. And to be fair, that would have worked if you could have hit your free throws. So those are the two big sticking points I have, and it's the 2 ways you really blow a game on blow a game on the road. Is you don't take the kill shot when you have the opportunity for the kill shot when you're up 15, and then you don't knock down your free throws. And it's a credit that Bryce Williams was able to even drag them back to overtime with that shot at the end. Like, he's an NBA player. We're all seeing it right now. Fantastic player, and if Nebraska has that defense and Bryce Williams, I think they have a chance in a lot of road games this year. That's not going to be the only chance this year. But that being said, man, it's just demoralizing the way you had him right where you wanted him. A great way to kind of respond based on what happened in East Lansing in your first road conference game of the year. Had a chance to bounce back from that. Instead, it's dejection. We'll see what they look like against Purdue here in a couple days.
You know, a different type of tough loss. You got your doors blown off and kind of tapped out against Sparty. You didn't tap out at all against Iowa. The point is it was a game when you could have put it away. It could have been put away with some better management the final 3 minutes of the first half. You kind of jacked around, and then you had a response even when Iowa got it close, and you came back and took the lead again once Iowa went up by 1. No, I thought Morgan gave the best minutes of the bigs last night against Iowa. What I didn't like, and I know that it's easy to sit here and say and point out, I didn't like the body language. I didn't like guys laying on the floor and they didn't get a call. And we kind of all think there should have been more consistently, putting it nicely, with some of the calls. But Nebraska got into a mode there where, and Fred talked about it, managing and handling their emotions. Guys weren't really quick up off the floor. And as much as, and I love Sammy Hoiberg, I think Sammy Hoiberg pressed a little bit and tried to do a little too much at times. That he's not a reason they lost, absolutely not, but he was kind of out of his game, maybe trying to do too much. So all around, they'll look at it and say, you can't ever no matter the sport, go into a Big Ten road game and expect a call, period. Just know that. Put it in ink and play through it.
Yeah, we've all said this. If Nebraska hits free throws, remember, they're 77% free throw shooting team.
They were bad.
They were great at the line against UCLA. They had a bad night, and they came at wrong times. And then layups. I mean, Juwan Gary had a really hard time shooting last night. I mean, he couldn't hit a shot. He couldn't even hit Joy Taylor if he tried yesterday. He was that rough. But, as a team, the game played out kind of like at the beginning. Nebraska controlled everything. And then the second half, when Iowa made the run, is exactly what we all feared going into that game. Iowa likes to throw up threes, and it's a make-or-miss sport. They're going to fall or not. And they fell. I mean, Nebraska's transition defense disappeared. Top 10 defense disappeared. That was a frustrating game that probably, don't you guys think that if, let's say, Nebraska wins, and they don't win by 15, but let's say they win by 8 to 10, and they play kind of how they were playing, we would have been like, wow, Nebraska's fortunate. A win is a win. We're not even going to dwell on it. A win is a win. Because I don't think Nebraska played exceptionally well outside of the guy wearing 3 who is wearing the cape of a first-team All-Big Tenner. It's just you got to learn from what happened last night. And as Bill was saying, they could go into Mackey Arena and win, but they got some things to work on. Sam Hoiberg was careless with the basketball. Bill alluded to it. Sejan's really fighting it from beyond the arc, and they need something out of him.
No, absolutely. It's the Average Joe Sports Show midweek edition, the Hurry Up Offense episode. Nebraska able to land Elijah Pritchett. Let's talk about the offensive tackle from Bama. He on 3 reporting this, and you know what? A guy that has all the talent in the world, was on the Outland watch list and doesn't have a lot of bad weight, I guess is the best way to put it. And where can Nebraska go with him? That's a big get for Nebraska. There's a lot of suitors. There's other offensive lineman guys that Nebraska are in on also. Marquise Groves Killebrew, a quarterback that was at Arizona, started his career at A&M. Nebraska looking at. But old Matt Rule's got his folks at 1890 in lockstep with him, and Nebraska again not afraid to presumably spend some money and win on the portal stage. And we'll see how this fits in because you got a case and an example of another guy from the SEC that's got all the talent in the world. Can he stay on the field for a full season for Nebraska next season?
It's a great pickup if that is true. The thing I wonder about Pritchett in reading about his decision to come to Nebraska, and maybe that's just the verbiage in the articles, but I've read 2 or 3 because I wanted to make sure I was reading it right, that Nebraska is adding depth at offensive line. And I thought the focus was finding the cornerstone of the offensive line, especially on the left side. And what was the guy from Nevada, Isaiah World or something, or World Be Free, who went elsewhere? But I'm reading about Pritchett, and maybe it's because he brings some baggage, okay? Has had some run-ins. Is he projected to be a starter at Nebraska, or is he a depth guy? He played 1 game, I believe, at left tackle, the 55 snaps, and then 600-plus snaps at right tackle. So with Ben Hart going, okay, maybe that solidifies that spot on the line. Is he a depth guy? Is he a swing guy? Or is he a cornerstone guy? That's my question with this one. And also, and again, given some of the stuff that he's bringing with him from Alabama.
Well, Nebraska needs him to be a starter. I think you're not bringing him in to come in and be a bench guy, but he's got to come in and earn that spot. He's got to go win that spot, and that's not a given based on what I've seen on film and with what Alabama fans seem to think about him. Like, he comes from an Alabama offensive line that, he started 12 games. He was also probably the weak spot of that Alabama offensive line. Yep. He comes in with a world of potential, 5-star, huge frame, super athletic. I mean,
top 40 player.
Type of offensive lineman that Husker fans have been clamoring for. Wasn't able to put it all together at Bama. Nebraska is bringing him in with hopes and I think with plans of him to come in and step in and be your number 1 right tackle next year. I don't know if that's a given, though. He's got development he needs to do. Maybe not on his body, but definitely on his technique. He needs to get better. Nebraska was looking for a starter in the portal. I'm not going to sit here and anoint this guy, Pritchett, as your starter next year at right tackle. He's got to come in and earn it. But Nebraska is bringing him in to come in and be the starter. I'm just not convinced they got themselves a guy that is you can ready to go in Sharpie and say that's my starter next year.
Here's the good thing too. If he doesn't win a starting job, that means some of those young pups really accelerated their game and improved because Coach Donnie isn't gonna just let you go play. I mean, you got to earn it. You got to have trust. And then you got to do what you're asked and know what you're supposed to do. And, Kalen DeBoer's commented on Pritchett quite a bit through his time because he was asked about him this year. And the kid is a worker. There was improvement. There was some growth. All that being said, you can't pass up and not bring this guy in. I agree. And the key thing also, to go back to a Bama coach's comment, Saban has said forever when he's on the set of game day, you better pay the right guys. Well, This isn't a cheap installment, so that better be the incentive. You don't play the guy if he hasn't earned it, right? That could cause some problems.
Yeah, so this is my reaction. Let's don't get caught up in where he's coming from. Because, if you're a good offensive lineman and you're starting at Alabama, you stay at Alabama. They processed him out. A couple of things. I'm going to be positive here because I know his PFF grades are really, really rough. And Nebraska needs to solidify that position because they really can't go into spring with just Gatula, Segrin, Knutson, and then up in the air about Teddy. So he's not the only one they're pursuing. They will probably add another tackle, and they might add a tackle that has a better chance than starting from him. And remember, the portal is fluid. But let's look at it from this standpoint: is Nebraska gets 2 years. I think unless they are a game changer, I like 2-year guys with Rule because we've seen some guys in their second year out of the portal pop, like an Omar Brown. I'm really excited to see what Sierra Wright does. The thing about Pritchett is maybe a change of scenery. Elijah mentioned he's got all the potential in the world. My thing is, when I look at him and watch Alabama play, he's a guy that's kind of slow to get out of his stance. He's had trouble with speed rushers. We know what defensive ends are like in the SEC. Well, those defensive ends also play at Michigan. They play at Penn State. So maybe a change of scenery, and he fits in, and he's one of Nebraska's better offensive linemen because they need him to play. It would be ideal for him to start. It would be ideal for him to take the next jump. I don't think he's gotten better at Alabama. I just think that he has been on the offensive line. Now, there's another thing, guys, that is curious about Pritchett is Jalen Milroe might be a tough guy to block for from the standpoint that he has happy feet.
Yep.
We know that Dylan doesn't really have happy feet. So what does that do? He's very intriguing. Nebraska needs bodies. They've added him. I think you don't say that's our tackle. You say that's a guy that can compete for the job. And I'm okay with that. I just hope that Nebraska did not overpay for this particular offensive lineman.
But we get enamored with where they come from, right?
Good enough to go to Bama. Oh no! I mean that's kind of the reaction.
And Nebraska got Mount Hood out of Georgia, and that didn't work out for 2 years, and now he's moved on. So you're right; they get processed out. Didn't work out at one place, and sometimes you bring in a guy from Southern Illinois or a Montana or where's Bly Hill from St. Francis, and sometimes you find gems at smaller schools where they've been developed, which is part of what we talked about in this culture. Guys are going to the FCS route or lower level FBS group of 4 type place, and we'll develop you for a couple of years, and then you'll get the big payday at one of the big players. So maybe that's the case with some of these guys who are come from schools we haven't heard of. But, when you got an Alabama guy, you're right. If he doesn't stay there, what's the reason? Change of scenery might do him good. And let's face it, when we all get Dodge Chargers at the rental counter, we also punch it when we get on the freeway. So I'm not gonna knock him for blowing the air out of it a couple of times while he was down there in Tuscaloosa.
Look at you, Doleman. Punch it.
Come on.
Let's get this thing 0 to 60.
But the last thing I'll kind of say with Pritchett is just combine some things everyone is. There are concerns. There's always going to be concerns with guys in the portal. You have the character concerns. You have what he put on tape at Bama. But the flip side of things is this is a guy with athletic potential that you really don't have in your offensive line room as it stands right now. The size and the general athleticism, it's not like a guy you have before. So I think you take a chance on a guy like that, despite the character concerns, despite the numbers, the PFF grade, which is sometimes taken with a grain of salt. I like what Sharpie said about sacks because, like, look at Russell Wilson. He makes good offensive lines look bad with some of their sack numbers because of the way he moves around in the pocket and has no feel for pressure. Like, just because a guy didn't work out somewhere doesn't mean it's going to work out somewhere else. A fresh change of scenery might be all he needs with a new position coach to finally take that jump in his college career. Or maybe he is what he is, in which case, did you overpay for him? Probably, but you better hope the development that you have in the room with Coach Raiola is what it needs to be.
Someone else was going to overpay. So
yeah, end of the day, and at the end of the day for 2025, Nebraska is only going to be as good as their offensive line. They've shored up other areas where you're like, okay. But that offensive line, which is kind of turning over from multiple staffs and older guys to guys that are chomping at the bit to get on the field. At the end of the day, in my opinion, Nebraska football only goes so far as the redshirt freshmen and the redshirt sophomores that are on the depth chart on that first slot that are starting, or they are backups, and they are built out of your high school recruiting class. The previous staff didn't do rules staff any favors in terms of offensive line recruiting and retention. So they've had a commitment to building that back up. Well, now the Brickses and the Sledges, we saw Gatula, they're on the front line now. The Benhart has moved on. The Scott has moved on, and it's go time for the offensive line. I'm fascinated by spring, guys, with the competition on the offensive line and the competition in the defensive backfield, because there's a mixture of guys you've gotten out of the portal, but then there's a heavy mixture of guys that you've recruited. And the numbers are pretty big on both spots. And will it be Survivor Island? But I'm a big fan of the homegrown offensive linemen, 1, 2, 3 years, moving through multiple year starters, and they were one of your own. Because I don't think Nebraska's in the level where they can, they have a bag that is dedicated to an offensive lineman, but that offensive tackle, as we were just kind of discussing about Pritchett, and he's not in this level. Those guys are expensive. And, there's also those guys want to go to the league. And so they'll take your bag, but they also want to take your NFL heritage on that offensive line.
The reality is the other, and Nebraska may not be done either. They may add Pete from New Mexico State.
They're not done, I would say.
No, they're not.
In a lot of places.
You want to talk about 6 figures, 7 figures.
Also with their staff as well.
Okay. Love that door that got cracked open as well. With Pete, Vandy was in the lead with a high 6-figure number from some of the reports or guys we talked to out there, and Nebraska, I think, is in a good position to add Pete as well, and you go get 2 if you can, and have your options to mix in, like you're talking about, Gary, with those high school recruits that you want to see pop and develop. It's the Average Joe Sports Show. It's a midweek edition here. Like and subscribe. Do so on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. And make sure you check out the Twitter handle of the AJ Sports Pod. We've hit Husker Hoops. Boo-hoo. We talked a little portal. And we can sneak in a little college football playoff here as that gets rolling Thursday and Friday. Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State Friday. And any movement on the lines, guys? Has anything jumped out to you there? I'm kind of probably rooting for Notre Dame, and I'm rooting for Ohio State. Give me the Ohio State Irish experience for the national title. We'll see if it happens.
I do need to. I said a couple weeks ago on this show that I didn't care about Tennessee, Ohio State because neither of them were going to beat Oregon. I need to own that take and say I was 100% wrong. Ohio State, they offensively, I think, have finally figured it out in that they're not going to run their head into a brick wall with some of their running plays. Do what you're good at. They do what they're good at. I think they've taken the chains off of Will Howard just a little bit, and they're letting him play a little bit more free. From a running back point of view, you're You're calling what they're good at as opposed to saying we just need to establish the line of scrimmage here. They're being a little more choosy with it. I've been impressed with how Chip Kelly has managed the end of the season from Michigan week up until now. They've kind of changed what they're doing offensively. I also think Ohio State is the 5.5 number feels about right against Texas. I think they're the better team. I think Texas is going to give some fight. The interesting game is going to be Thursday night, though, with Notre Dame and Penn State. Notre Dame's a 1.5-point favorite. Stylistically, I think Notre Dame and Penn State match up really well. Notre Dame might be a little bit more complete with what they do defensively and offensively, but I think Penn State's got the better offense, and Drew Aller's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the country right now. So that's a fun game, and it only could go either way in my eyes. I don't have a favorite in that one.
Yeah. I like the Notre Dame, the way Notre Dame played the other night, aggressive, but I wonder about Riley Leonard. I mean, his stats in that game. You talk about managing a quarterback that managed, and he got all the accolades, but he was like, what, 9 of 14 or something for 90 yards? It was just a really pedestrian. He did everything right, did not make mistakes, but he didn't win the game for him. So I question if they need the quarterback to win them the game.
Good ask.
Is he the guy that can get it done? I like what Drew Aller's doing at Penn State, but I just wonder. Notre Dame got a complete team victory, but it wasn't because they had to rely on quarterback play. I think if Texas has to rely on Ewers, he can probably win them a game, and if he can't get it done, they got a young guy. I don't know who the backup is at Texas, but I think he's pretty good too. And Ohio State's playing great right now. Let me just say this. I'm taking the long view on this Ohio State team. I want Ohio State to win the national championship, and I want them to lose next Thanksgiving to Michigan because I want to see the apoplectic reaction of Ohio State fans if they've got a coach who just won a national championship and lost to Michigan for the 5th straight year. That's what I want to see, because I just think that would be incredible college football reality drama. So go Buckeyes.
Yeah,
for that reason.
Yeah, Ohio State is who we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's who they're supposed to be.
Yeah, They have the best roster in college football. They have the best players. They have the best defense. They have a guy who's on a Carmelo Anthony Syracuse run, and Jeremiah Smith is a freshman.
Yeah.
But he has to stick around for 2 more years. Can't go to the NBA. That would be very awkward and kind of weird.
We might watch.
but they're the best team, and it's when you hit the tournament, it's who gets on a heater, and they're on a heater, and they're scary. And Texas is good. But Texas, I haven't seen Texas play a 60-minute football game all year. And it's going to take that at minimum against Ohio State. So that worries me. And also, Texas hasn't found their running game again. And, man, if you can't run the football on Ohio State against that defensive line, you're going to be in big-time trouble. Mm-hmm. The other game is very intriguing because is Penn State for real? Because, you're going to go, didn't Penn State beat SMU and Boise State, and Notre Dame had to beat Georgia? But Penn State is still playing, and Penn State might have the better quarterback. They have one of the top players on the field that is a tight end. But I like Notre Dame because you know why? I think Notre Dame has changed. We used to talk about Notre Dame, and they were slow, and they weren't real athletic, and they had the tall grass at Notre Dame Stadium, and that's why they won, and look at the Irish. All of a sudden, offense, defense, special teams, they have home run hitters. And I think they have a coach that has made Notre Dame likable. I like Notre Dame in a close game, but I wouldn't frown amongst having a Ohio State-Penn State all Big Ten final on a Monday night in a couple of weeks.
Well, we talked about which quarterback do you trust to lead your team late, and it's not Riley Leonard, but which coach in that game do you trust more in a tie ball game in the 4th quarter? Do you trust James Franklin? I don't. Personally, no. I mean, let's be honest. The reason that game against Boise State was so close was because James Franklin or whoever was calling plays was just abandoning the run over there, averaging like 8 yards a pop on the ground, and yet they're still giving the ball to Drew Aller. And that's, after everything I said, I think Drew Aller's a great quarterback, but I do worry about Penn State from a coaching perspective, screwing it all up in the 4th quarter.
Find a way to get Warren involved and make somebody stop Warren.
I mean, they don't call him Big Game James for a reason.
I know, right? It's trademarked by James Worthy.
He ain't no big shot Bob. Shout out Robert Ory.
No.
I think I don't know. I love Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's a dude. Again, he single-handedly has made Notre Dame likable, in my opinion. I mean, they're a good football team. They got a good culture. He's a good coach. He seems grounded. And he outcoached Kirby Smart. You know? And there's also, in these games, their attention to detail and look at special teams can go a long, long way.
I'm going to go back to the quarterback, and you're not wrong, Bill, about Riley Leonard and his passing prowess, but I like his legs. I like his ability to run with the football, and Notre Dame can say, all right, it's 3rd and 6. We're not going to make you throw it, but it's going to be in your hands. Let's figure out a quarterback run element, and it's not that Aller can't do that, but as much pressure as Riley Leonard was under with Georgia, he didn't really turn it over in key situations. Penn State does do that. They do. Aller has had the unfortunate ability to do that in some of the bigger games. It's been a turnover or two. So will Penn State overthink it? They tend to in big games. And will Riley Leonard just make a play with his legs? And I think that's going to be your difference also with the special teams element and the Irish defense. So we're set for a great weekend of football between college and the NFL.
It's the most beautiful time of year, but there's also that sinking feeling, understanding that you only have about a month of football season left, and one of those weekends is Pro Bowl weekend, and oh man, you're just running out of good football games. So
hey, just embrace 5 straight days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We have college ball and NFL ball.
The right type of bender, Bill.
And also, are we choosing teams here today? Because we got me and Schmidt. We're wearing the red hoodies, and we got the guys in the dark jerseys. And if I'm going to set the line at this with Schmidt's wheezing and my bad knees, my money's on Sharpie and Elijah. But
I bet
that's
on him.
The people
I'm going to throw the
line's going to be.
I'm going to throw the fight. Bill, it's all you. I'm tagging out.
My Duncan days are over, boys. So good on the boys in black.
All right,
I'll choose to not speak in this argument here.
This prediction thing. Are we going? I'm going to go Notre Dame and Ohio State for the championship.
I'll go Notre Dame and Ohio State, but I do think Texas covers against Ohio State because everything tells me that Ohio State's going to run away with it, and I'm not a very smart man. Vegas knows something. I think Texas covers against Ohio State wins, and then Notre Dame advances, and it's going to be Ohio State, Notre Dame. I'm with you.
Hey, Ohio State and Notre Dame aren't very far apart, but they haven't played very often. I'll take them playing for the national championship in Atlanta.
Okay, Bill?
Yeah, I think last week I might have said Penn State, but I like Notre Dame. I like Ohio State, and go Michigan a year from now because I just want the drama in Columbus.
That'd be
hey, then did you see the Netflix? So WWE was on Netflix Monday night, and the sign was back. The guy that has the sign of how many days it's been since Ohio State has beaten Michigan, and it was very prevalent on the camera.
That's funny.
Last thought here is I will say that Penn State, Ohio State would also be a fun national championship game, but there's no way ESPN lets it happen. There's just no way ESPN lets that happen.
Technical difficulties.
Somebody's going to hit the Buffalo Wild Wings button behind the counter.
Hey, and the crazy thing is, as much as they run with the SEC, they're going to have monster ratings for these two games.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You know? I mean, we love football. Look at the bowl ratings. The season really has never ended. I think that helps. You know, like we had conference championship weekend, we had Army, Navy, and we were right into the playoff and bowl season. So college football for a month hasn't ended, and we're watching, man. But I don't know. ESPN's going to have 2 semifinals with major brands. People are going to watch. Just can we sit back and enjoy football and then dream what it would take for a local team to make the field of 12?
Be a good thing, man.
10 wins.
Yeah, 10's the number. That is Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Thanks for tuning in to the Average Joe Sports Show. Back at you for a Sunday Live later this weekend.